discuss, create, or provide instruction, guidance to staff to create a non-trophy bull elk season and regulations. First thing, let's have public comment. And we've heard, let's see, do we have any cards on this first? This was be a 31 or 32. Let's see, here was one, Paul Dixon had 32 written down. And then we had Mr. Wellington. Raise his hand.
Paul Dixon, Clark County. Because we didn't have any backup materials from Corey on this, we didn't take action on it in our agenda when we posted it. But his backup material had come in at the time of our meeting, so we had just an informational discussion. And I will say that the big thing that was brought up in concern was brought up by the game warden in the back and Scott Kimball, which is basically the from a policing or regulatory thing when you set limits on number of points on horns, because a lot of animals get damaged when they're shot or fall or other things, that they thought that there could be abuse in the system, and it would be, from a game warden's perspective, a very hard thing to regulate and monitor. And the other point that was made, just as we discussed things informationally, was the fact that we have a spike elk hunt right now. We were wondering why that couldn't be modified to allow collection up to 3 or 4 points. You know, rather than just spike to say up to 3 or 4 points, we already have that on the books, and just expand the use of that to try to get this age class of bulls they're talking about. And on a personal note, for me personally, although Corey says a lot of guys wouldn't take a 300 class 5-point or 330 class 5-point, for a lot of hunters, anything over 300 class bull elk is a trophy, and whether it's 5, 6, 7, or 8 points when you get up there. And I think that you know, it would, although it does from a guiding perspective, some of the guides don't want to sell a 330 class 5-point. I think for a lot of hunters in the state of Nevada, a 330 class 5 points, something they'd hang on their wall and be proud of. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wellington.
Thank you. For the record, Ken Wellington, Elko County. Our board did support this, and they asked me and the public that was present just to express a couple concerns and opinions that they had. They were concerned with the 5 points or fewer. They would like to see that at 4 points and fewer because there is some larger class 5-point bull elk in Elko County that we know of. They were concerned about being allowed to only put in for one elk hunt and not have an additional one to be able to pull bonus points from this. They were concerned that these numbers that would come out of this would affect their quotas that are issued right now. They mentioned we have enough congestion in areas that the elk are in for elk hunting because of the amount of tags we've had to put out in like 061, 071. Caused concern of when would they do this season? Is it going to be stacked on top of others? There was also concerns of how would they enforce the broken horns, as Mr. Dixon mentioned, that if somebody got in and all of a sudden they had a 6x6 or a 6x5 and they snapped off one of the horns, how are we, or law enforcement, going to be able to enforce that? And they also mentioned the spike count was already in the books. Maybe that could be modified. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Okay, we had one up here. Did you fill out a card, sir? Pardon? Did you fill out a card? No. Oh, you can fill out one when you get done. I just wanted to... Come on, we can't hear you unless you can. Just fill out a card when you're done speaking. That's all. All right. The cards are outside. When you're done, you can fill one out for us, please.
Randy Lytle. Live down by Pioche area, 23231. This, to me, I've been, about 15 years now. I finally drew my bull elk tag. And I'm excited as all get out. But this program, the way I look at it, is now if I get my bull, I got to wait for 10 years. If I don't get but with this hunt, I can start putting in for this depredation hunt and have a chance of getting another one within those 10 years. That was one advantage. The other advantage is we've got down there, we've got a class of 5 points that are going to stay there. There will never be 6 points. And some of them are nice bulls, but a lot of them are just 5 points, and that's where they stay. And it might be a chance to get rid of some of those. I don't, just my own opinion, I don't see that much problem with it, especially if you've already got a depredation hunt. Like somebody said, it could be altered just a little bit. I think it'll make a lot better quality hunt in 231 especially. I'm not sure about 220 or across the highway, but 231, we're getting too many trash smaller bulls. 4 points with freak horns, twisted, things like this. And it'd sure help if they could clean them out of there.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Corner.
George Corner, Nevada Outfitters and Guides Association. We gave our input at the Elko County Cab. Ken's brought up most of our points. I was interested in what Raine was pointing out, if this could be made a depredation hunt. And I'd suggest the 4 points unless I'd be more comfortable with personally, but if it doesn't affect the bonus points, I think you get more participation. And then we have guides brought up again, 061, 071, other areas where we don't want to put any more pressure. And I'm sure the Department of Wildlife Commission would cover that when you're setting the seasons and all that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing no closed public hearing, bring this back to the commission. I'd just like to make a couple just brief comments on it. One is I'd like to thank the members who brought up the information here, especially Corey Lytle. I mean, this is quite a lot of stuff to come up with, and it's quite comprehensive. I mean, we might tweak one or two things, but I don't see anything other than with 4 point or 5 point or basic minor differences in it. I do see that there is at least the possibility that it might help with the prospective genetic health of the herds. There is that good possibility out there. Well, I don't know about the science on it, but that's why we have Mr. Mayor to help us out with that. Okay, we had a comment down at the end here. Mr. Macbeth.
I can tell you that from my experience of having hunted elk in units 221, 222 extensively for the last 7 years, that there has been, I have seen a decline in the older age class bulls, and I have also seen a proliferation of these large 5 point bulls. We have, there are that seems to be a genetic trait in this area, and so this is the first proposal that makes a lot of sense to me on two fronts. One is to maybe put some pressure and get those big 5 points out of the gene pool, and two, to deal with our bull cow ratio. Because it doesn't sound like, from what I'm seeing in units 221, 222, that just merely harvesting the cows is getting things done from managing the herd size and all that. So I think this makes a lot of sense to me, and I really would like to support it.
Thank you, Mr. Macbeth. Do we have anybody down this end? Okay. Mr. Vice Chairman.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate and read a letter here, or a couple sentences here, on the email I got from the director, Ken Mayer, on March the 2nd. And I'm reiterating this. And it says, therefore, we must be science-based in our approach to wildlife management. We need to work together and use science as our base from a biological perspective. So I assume before he'd want to implement this, he'd have some kind of science that this is really, from other states or something, that this is really going to work. I mean, I'm not opposed to it if I see the science that it's going to work. But if we're just shotgun out there and throw a program out without any basis of it, I'm opposed to it. And so I'm assuming he's going to bring some science and show that other states or some technical papers that say they're, when you, to keep the point class up, you take out these middle bulls. And I know there's some monster 5 points there because I shot a huge 5 point, real big 5 point, and passed up a smaller 6 point because he was never going to be a bigger than a 5 point. but, you know, we need I need some basis. You can't just say, well, we think this is going to work. I don't think that's the way that, according to this, that the department operates, and so I'd like to see something substantial on that before I get behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lent. Anything else here? This isn't, okay, Mr. Vogler.
If you're gonna make a souffle, you gotta break some eggs. This will be our science if we have a baseline. There's obviously some ranchers that are paying the price because they're in the livestock business or raising hay. And just, if we make the science, then I think we cover our bases. And I think Mr. Lytle and his group will be very cognizant of the situation as Mr. Lent has laid it out, and will work diligently to make sure that we keep good records.
All right, this is an action item, and if we want to see this go forward, what would we like to see? Mr. Howell?
You're ready for a motion, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I move that we ask the staff to create a non-trophy bull elk season with the proper regulations starting next year.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded to request that staff create a, what are we calling this thing? Non-trophy bull regulation by next year. Any further discussion on this matter? I just have just a perhaps procedural on this. If I could ask Mr. Mayor, what would be a timeline on this if this does pass? What would it take?
I'm wondering if we can do this in December and January and have it established. And then part of our season and bag quota setting meetings, we would actually then populate the various hunts that we felt met some scientific criteria. We need to go back and take a look at our bull ratios and what the biologists think in the various units. You can do, one of the problems, the reason we have this discussion is that people are always, what's happened over the years is we've managed for 5 points because guys are taking 6-pointers. And you basically mine that resource, and we don't have a quota high enough to drop the bull ratio down to where we really need it to be a productive thing. Got that horn envy thing going on. So we need to take a look at it and provide the science so we feel comfortable that we're actually going to be able to do something, accomplish something with this management bull perspective by looking at each one of the units. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't, in December, come with a definition, and we got to have the definition anyway, and that would establish a potential for a framework in each one of the elk units we have. I mean,
Okay.
that's or off the top of my
So it is
head.
realistic that in December, we could have the basic regulation, the rest may come as may come. I just wanted to establish
Yeah,
a timeline for this motion.
And if we need December and January to do that, we've got those 2 meetings.
Excellent. Okay, does everybody understand?
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chairman.
For the record, without anything to substantiate this, I'm going to be opposed to it, and until we get some more information, and if we have some kind of science, like Director says, I will vote for it, but at this point, I can't.
I think one thing we might do is we could bring the science in the December meeting, talk about that in depth, and then in the January meeting, actually bring a package of a definition of
All right.
trophy bull. If that suits the commission.
All right, we've got a motion second on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, everybody understand the motion? To bring forth a regulation, let me get this read here. To create a non-trophy bull elk season and regulations. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye. Aye. And all those opposed? Okay, it passes 7 in favor, 1 opposed. Vice Chairman Lent opposed. Okay? We have that? Yep. Okay. Let's